Hello, coaches. Welcome back to another episode of Coach Better Spotlight. My name is Kim Cafino, and I've worked with hundreds of teachers, coaches, and leaders in schools around the world to help them create thriving and sustainable instructional coaching programs. And I'm on a mission to help you coach better. Wherever you are in your coaching journey, we can support you. Come learn with me in one of our courses or private mentoring packages designed specifically for instructional coaches. Join our global Coach Better community, ask any questions you'd like to hear us answer, and find all of our resources for instructional coaches on our website at coachbetter.tv. You can also find us on social media at Eduro Learning or at our Coach Better Facebook group, and subscribe to our channel here on YouTube to catch all of our latest videos. If you're not sure where to start, take our free quiz to get a tailored list of resources delivered straight to you and designed specifically for your level of coaching experience. You can find it at coachbetter.tv/quiz. Today's episode is a case study conversation with two amazing educators, EAL teacher Lindsay Manzella and Individuals and Societies teacher Stephany. At the time of recording, Lindsay and John were working together at NIST International School in Thailand, where they developed a unique model for co-teaching and coaching to support all learners in John's classroom, where Lindsay was the EAL support teacher. Both Lindsay and John have had training in coaching, so they have come to the co-teaching experience with a foundational understanding of how coaching works. I'm so excited to share this conversation with you because it is wonderful to hear two educators, neither of whom is currently in an instructional coaching position, speak so passionately about the power of coaching. Plus, it's so powerful to hear the different ways that we can bring a coaching mindset and coaching practices to collaborative partnerships between teachers, even if it's not in a formal instructional coaching role. For those of you that don't have an instructional coaching program and you're wondering how you might get started, this episode is going to be so helpful. In this Spotlight episode, we're focusing on what makes this coaching relationship so valuable to John as a classroom teacher and what Lindsay is doing to create that environment. In the full-length audio podcast episode, we also talk about how Lindsay and John work together, why John, as an MYP Individuals and Societies teacher, finds coaching so valuable, why Lindsay, as an EAL teacher, finds coaching such a powerful support to her work, what works well in their partnership, as well as what can be challenging, and how this model might work in other schools. To listen to the full-length episode, subscribe to Coach Better wherever you get your podcasts. This episode is such a wonderful window into the many ways we can bring a coaching mindset and truly collaborative practice to any school setting, even if you don't have a coaching program yet. If you're curious about how to get started building a coaching culture, even if you don't have a coaching program, make sure to stay tuned to the end of the episode for another great learning opportunity. Okay, let's jump in. So tell us a little bit about how you work together. I'll get Lindsay to go first and then John to pick up anything that is missing.
Sure. So I'll start with kind of how we came together. So we were in kind of one of those, what they call arranged marriage situations, where we were just placed on the schedule together. And we found out like a week before school started, if that we were going to be working together. And I have a lot of experience collaborating and co-teaching with other teachers in various content areas. And so, prior to the year starting, I had two teachers that I was already working with who I'd be continuing on with for the second year. And then I had two teachers who were new to me that year for teaching. And so I just, the week before school started, I had to approach John and, tell him, hey, did you know we're working together? Have you done that before? And just to kind of work out how we would, get started.
Yeah, I think it's also important to note that we've done a lot of really good work this year, but it's always important to note that we were not teaching besties before this all started. I knew Lindsay through departmental meetings for like a year 8 individual societies that met once every cycle, but we weren't like synergizing before. I mean, there's the interaction in a meeting, but that's 1 hour every couple of weeks. And I, being teaching for a long time, but particularly in NIST, I've had other adults in the room, but the challenge for me was I've never really learned how to fully utilize them. And the approach Lindsay had with me was when we did find out we're teaching, not even approaching me in person, sent me an email, or I think you mentioned you sent me an email that had a menu of things that you did as an EAL teacher, and as a side sort of bonus, item was coaching. And I had just already enrolled into that instructional program I mentioned. So I was a little bit more intrigued than I would have been maybe even 2 years prior to that.
Yeah, and our director of teaching and learning had said to me, hey, I know you're working with John this year, and he's like starting to get to coaching. He's really interested in that. And she knew I was interested. So she's like, why don't you talk to John about that? And you guys can have some conversations. And I was like, oh, this might be a teacher who's willing to try this out with me, because the prior year I had 2 teachers who I had asked to try this. It was towards the middle to end of the year, and some said yes and changed their mind, and some we just kind of ran out of time. So John was the first person at NIST that I was able to kind of try out this approach with. And so just to give a little more detail on how we do actually work together, like on a daily and weekly basis, John's teaching INS, which is like a sort of social studies, humanities, and he teaches one section 5 times per cycle, and I'm with him 4 of those 5 times. So we are scheduled to be together for the full class period 4 times. And we also have a planning period that him and I have put on our own schedules to meet with each other and collaborate and prepare.
Yeah. And I also think it's when I knew Lindsay professionally, as I said, from the years previous, but I knew her to be very organized on working with the director of teaching and learning. And I have 2 little kids, and I do coaching the school, athletic coaching. And so I was, to be honest, a little shook, because she is very organized, and that's an area for growth for me is my organization. I'm always planned, I'm always ready. But so I was nervous about the amount of work this like co-teaching and co-planning was going to be. But when I got the menu, I saw this as, okay, let's try this out. And the irony is I was worried about all this extra time. And really, it's now the class I worry the least about, because I know we're going to meet every 2 cycles, and every cycle, and we have an opportunity to kind of look and plan and co-assess, co-teach, look at resources, and it's adding 2 levels of highly skilled professionals and our breadth and depth of knowledge together. So it's what used to be my biggest worry is now like it's the class I'm the most relaxed about, because I know we planned it.
And the way I look at the co-planning time, it's like John's going to have to plan anyways for that class. And then I'm going to need to plan my supports anyways and different resources for the students. So if we just do that planning we were going to do, but together at the same time in the same room, we're not really adding any extra work. We're just doing our separate work at the same time. And it's actually, we're able to share ideas and bounce things off of each other. And like John said, the end product ends up becoming much better than if we had done it separately.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So love hearing about the shift in mindset, John, that you went through, like the panic about, oh my gosh, now I'm collaboratively working with a teacher who's highly organized and she knows what she's doing. And I'm a person who, that's an area that I, like you said, area of growth. And now you're like, this is the most relaxed I can be, because you have such quality planning happening that is routine in your schedule, super organized, and you don't have to stress about it because you've got it down. So that is amazing. And I think that's going to lead really directly into my next question, but I want to make sure I ask it because maybe there's something else you might want to say, which is for you, John. One of the things that has come up on occasion on the podcast is that I often talk to coaches. And wouldn't it be great if I talked to some teachers about how they felt about coaching? And some of those people might not realize that that's how this podcast started many years ago, was primarily talking to teachers. But I'd really like to hear why you, as a teacher, John, feel coaching is so valuable for you as a teacher, for you and your students, for you in your professional growth. Like, why is coaching worthwhile for you? Why is it worth your time?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. For me, it comes down to, in the end, you want to help the students learn. And the best part of it is it adds so much value and so much focus on student learning outcomes, which sometimes you can have a great lesson and you're putting things on the board and you're having hand at the end. Have I taught what I wanted them to teach? And how do I know that my students know that? And having another person who's a professional in the room as another set of eyes. So that's great. But what makes it better is having a coach with a coaching mindset, because it's not like Lindsay is coaching me up 24/7. But when we do in our planning and we start talking about areas we want to improve, and my thing was like, are our kids learning vocabulary? Are they using usable vocabulary to elevate their responses in class, in talking, and their writing? And I wasn't sure I was getting it done. And you can only do so much self-reflection, and you can record yourself, but having those set of eyes with a coaching mentality, it's not like Lindsay's telling me this is right, this is wrong. She's like, she helps me explore and be a little bit more purposeful in my reflection of our practices and my own practice. And so from that standpoint, it's not some sort of like one-off PD where I'm going this guru, but then they don't know the kids I teach. They don't know the situation, the school, the timing. It's somebody who knows the kids and is vested with me, and I see her for the 5 classes. So it's not like, try this and I'll come back and we'll talk in a month. It's like in the class, coaching, and there's times when it's like officially the coaching cycle, and there's times when we're just like in the middle of a conversation, we have a quick little sidebar and like, let's try this, let's try that. So from that standpoint, helps me get better as a teacher to improve student learning outcomes and to have a better idea that what I'm doing in class is what it is effective in the way I intend it to be.
Beautiful. You summed it up right there. I love hearing all of that. You said 2 things that I think that really kind of like stuck out to me. And one was her approach with a coaching mindset that is really about helping you reflect. We could say self-reflecting, but she's coaching you. So, but like, as opposed to giving you directly telling you do this or do that, the way sometimes we might see a more traditional, even EAL kind of approach, like we should do this, we should do that, or I'll pull the EAL students out, or whatever the case may be. This is much more about coaching you through the areas that you want to improve in terms of your learning. So that really stood out for me. And then the second thing that really stood out for me is, because something I say all the time, that it's not one-off PD. They don't know the kids you teach or the situation of the school, that she's invested, she's in the classroom with me, and it's ongoing over the course of the year. And I think those 2 points are so important for not just educators, but especially school leaders to recognize the value of coaching. It's not just a conversation. It's the way you have the conversation and the fact that you're embedded in the school throughout the year. It's like those 2 facets are so essential.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think just to add on to what John was saying, like when he had this idea that he wanted his students to be better in vocabulary and, they were going to use it in their writing and their speaking. And I didn't come in as the expert with here's how you're going to do it. So we did basically one long coaching cycle that lasted throughout the year. We met a couple of times and, had our conversations that were kind of like the official formal ones where we sat down together, and it wasn't like a one-off. It was like a planned coaching conversation. And when we went back, midway through the year and kind of reflected on what we were doing, we both recognized that, well, we're not quite meeting the goal that we wanted. And so what we did was both of us brought a couple strategies to the meeting. We both described those strategies to each other, and together we came up with a plan of what we thought was going to work best and how we were going to use them. So I talk a lot of times about how I work on the consult, collaborate, coach spectrum. So, I'm coaching him to get some ideas and to see what he wants and what his goals are for his students. And then we're collaborating together and we're working, in the classroom, we're working in our co-planning. But rarely am I just giving him and saying, oh, you need a vocabulary strategy here. Let's do this. We're doing it together.
And I think it's important. I echo everything Lindsay's saying, but having that coaching mindset with collaborative teaching is so key because, I've taught at these really nice schools all around the world, in the US and internationally. And I've had training in like EAL, and I've had training in special needs and exceptional learners, but no one's ever taught me anywhere how to work with another adult in the room. So it's always this sort of like, I remember my first day at NIST, there was like 5 or 6 adults on the Zoom, because it was the middle of COVID, on the Zoom with me. I'm like, how am I supposed to utilize the EAL, the one-on-one, the enrichment? And there's no training for that. And it's wasted talents. And so having the coaching mindset with the collaborative makes our collaborative time more effective, because she's thinking of how to improve my delivery and our delivery of of curriculum. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, if I want to work on this, I can get feedback on this in a way that it's not like I'm not going to the assistant director of teaching and learning or my principal who might be judging. I'm just like, here's a co-teacher, like, hey, I'm trying to work on like talking time. Hey, I'm trying to work on this. And so it's natural ways to kind of see that improvement.
Another key point, non-evaluative, right in there, snuck it in there. Fabulous. Yes, I really appreciate, I know you said this at the EarCo's conference too, I think that that we don't have training in how to work with other adults in the room. And it's just such a good point. And I know that we all have different opinions about instructional coaching and how it works and how it looks and whether or not everyone should be a coach. But I do think there are certain aspects of coaching skills that just help adults talk to each other, like regardless of whether or not you're going to be titled a coach, just being able to be a genuine listener, understanding some micro skills like pausing and paraphrasing and those kinds of pieces. Someone coming into a relationship with that perspective, you're able to go deeper in a safer, more psychologically safe environment than maybe you would if you're just suddenly two adults stuck in a room. This one's an expert and this one's an expert, and we're kind of vying for control over who does it better. And Lindsay, I know that you have a lot to say about how coaching supports your work specifically in EAL. So tell us a little bit from your lens of an EAL specialist. How does coaching add to your work? How is it another layer for you? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think like the big thing about our collaborative teaching relationship is that we're both equal partners. And so a lot of times in schools, the EAL specialist is sort of like a helper or an aide, and they're not really given that much of a role. So first of all, just through like the collaborative planning that we do together, it kind of elevates my role in the classroom a little bit because I know what's going on and I've helped to plan these things and I've had input, for language things that, that we want to happen. So I think that's like a really big part of it, that we're both equal partners, but also like just the whole coaching aspect of it, I think helps because it gives us that time to pause and reflect together where we're like kind of thinking like I might be leading the conversation and asking John the questions, but then once he comes up with, the goal that he wants for our students, then they're our students and we're together all the time and we're working towards those things together. And like John said, maybe with, a traditional instructional coach, they might then leave and go work with somebody else and come back and check in, but we're together all the time. And so, that just gives us a focus of our goal together. And then, John as the content teacher, he knows what he's got to get through in the units, and he might I don't want to get sidetracked, but a lot of things come up that are really important to you as a teacher, and not you specifically, John. I mean the content teacher in general. And so as being that second person who has in mind always okay, this was our goal and we said we were going to do this, then I can sort of be like, hey, we forgot about this goal for a while because we went on holiday and then we had a long summative and then we started a new unit. But, now that, we're together, I remember what we need to do. And so I'm like, hey, let's not forget our goal. Let's bring this back. And so it kind of can bring us back to it.
Yeah. And one thing I want to add to that is the idea that coaching, because I've done a lot of athletic coaching, and as I'm progressing through my program, is coaches know how to build, and a coaching mindset knows how to build community, whether that's a team, whether that's just two people in the room or the kids involved in there, or if it's a larger department, because their mindset is more on listening and how to connect, on how to build on people's strengths, how to approach somebody at the right time and place, about, an opportunity to improve. It's one, instead of saying oh, you're frustrated because the test turned out horrible, that's bad, here's some 5 things. You're like, what's working well in the class? Because invariably, if you talk about what's working well in the class, a good teacher is going to go to what's not working well in the class. And then it's those on-ramps to those hard discussions that a coaching mindset and mentality are valuable to building this repertoire, with it, whether it's in our classroom, but it's actually, as I think Lindsay can talk about, it's built out to more of our year team and different departments that she works in, because it's not just a consolidated in one spot.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Lindsay and John. What really stands out to me in this conversation is the way that both Lindsay and John have embraced a coaching mindset, the way they work together to benefit their students, and the structured processes they follow to reflect and plan. It's clearly a process that many educators can take on board. As they both point out during the episode, building a coaching culture across a school takes time. But we can see from this conversation that even 1 or 2 teachers can begin to have a huge impact on the whole school community. If this concept of developing a coaching mindset to build a culture of coaching, with or without instructional coaches, resonates with you, you are going to love our newest course that opens for registration soon. It's called Cultivating a Coaching Mindset. In this course, you'll learn about the 5 domains of a coaching mindset so you can begin applying coaching skills in your current role as an educator. Inside the course, you'll embrace the essential attitudes needed to have a successful coaching conversation, build concrete coaching skills you can use in conversations immediately, explore the actions needed when operating with a coaching mindset, understand the different type of roles you might take in a coaching conversation or relationship, and recognize the foundational agreements that make developing a coaching mindset successful. You'll also understand the difference between a coaching mindset and an intentional coaching program. Get all the details about the course at edurolearning.com/mindset. Learning how to embrace a coaching mindset is a huge part of making the move to a coaching role. We are so busy as teachers that we often feel pressure to fix any issues right away, which makes it hard to remember to slow down and support the thinking of your coaching partner first. If you're ready to build these skills, you will love our courses for coaches. Get all the details about this course at edurolearning.com/mindset. We have workshops and courses to support coaches at every stage of their career, from new and aspiring coaches making the move from classroom to coach in our course Getting Started as a Coach, to current coaches ready to be more intentional and strategic in their practice and program building in the Coach Certificate and Mentorship Program, to established coaches leveraging their coaching experience to lead in our course Coaches as Leaders. Find them all on our Coach Better website at coachbetter.tv/learn. Wherever you are in your coaching journey, we can support you. If you're curious right now, if you have questions, please reach out. You can leave a comment here on this YouTube video or on the show notes at our website at coachbetter.tv. You can join our Coach Better Facebook group, or you can find us on social media at Eduro Learning and send me a DM. I'd love to support you on your coaching journey. See you next time.